Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Hey, Tom. Happy Tuesday. Sorry.
It is Tuesday.
Tuesday. I'm in the Bat Cave today, so haven't been here, and this is where it all started.
I know. I remember.
And now I'm back here. It's
You need to work on your lighting a little bit, I think.
I do. I openly admit that. I kind of boxed myself into a corner this morning. That makes me too bright, right?
It's fine.
Yeah.
I shouldn't have said anything because
now I'm going to obsess over, but that's
correct.
fine.
You do have your guitar in the background. I do like the fact that in almost every, maybe not when you're outside or on the porch, but you have a guitar in your office. You have a guitar
and
there.
The obligatory. Oh, that's like college degrees.
Nice.
Got to have those,
Unless you're me, I don't have any.
I guess if I don't have the college degrees, that means I didn't graduate.
I don't think that's how it works.
You've got all that space on your wall.
I know. I just haven't put it all together yet. I will.
So, shall we get to this today?
Why not? So, welcome to today's Antidote, everyone. Our daily podcast, or as Bob likes to say, cast, that is both pod and broad.
I love it.
I know you do.
I really like that. That's one of the best ones I've ever come up with.
All right. So we hope that if you are listening to the podcast, that you will share it with friends and that you will rate our show or this episode, because it helps us get the information out further, spreading our message, which is part of our goal. If you are watching on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, please feel free to share in the comments if you have comments. We will be talking about our topic, which is expectations. It's our topic for the week. We'll be talking about that today. So if you have thoughts about expectations, especially as it relates to when others provide you with expectations or have expectations, that you will share them, because we know that it will impact the show and might help someone else. Then at the end, Bob and I will offer our one thing to kind of help you if you are struggling with this or have a challenge around this topic. And we would encourage you to share your one thing as well. So with that, let's move on to the first part of our program, which is always celebrations. So Bob, what are you celebrating today?
Tell you what, Tom, why can you tell us real quickly why we celebrate? Just because I had someone ask me that yesterday, and I was like, that's a great question.
Certainly. One of the reasons we celebrate is that I think it's always good for us to recognize the work that we do, so that we've taken some action. Usually it's through our day action that has been a challenge that might not have been easy to do. And so often we just beat ourselves up about either how long it took us to do it, what the results were. I've been waiting to do this forever. And rather look at, I completed this task. This was something that I wanted to do and I completed it. So one of the things it does at the start of any sort of meeting for us, for our podcasts and casts that are brought in pod, it puts you in a good frame of mind. Because when you start talking about the things you're celebrating, you get excited. As I think I shared on one episode, that I definitely feel a change in my face. Mm-hmm. Smile a little bit. I'm just a little more excited about what we're going to do. And then we can celebrate that as well. So that's the reason we start every show with celebrations. And we encourage you to start your day with, okay, what are you celebrating from what you did yesterday? Or if you're wrapping up the end of your day, what are you celebrating? And then what are you going to do tomorrow?
I think it also deepens people's bonds. When I hear what you're celebrating some days, it's like, oh, I didn't know that was important to Tom. Wow, that's really good to find out. Or, oh, I never really thought of that as something worthy of celebration. I might have to celebrate that one day. So I think it really deepens relationships and also makes us look a lot more deeply at what we're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So
my celebration today is honesty. So I have had 4 people in the last 48 hours be brutally honest with me. Though I didn't like any of the 4 messages a lot, they were all messages I needed to hear at that moment.
And I don't think one of them was me. Was it?
No, you didn't fall. No, you weren't in that camp this time. Usually you are, but you and I have been going in different circles. But it's helpful when people feel like they can be honest with you, and when they share something that helps you see things with a perspective that you just didn't have. And some of it was personal and some of it was professional. And all 4 of the discussions were like, oh, I really don't want to hear this. But it's really valuable to have that honest feedback of what someone's seeing and having their perspective. And their perspective is colored by what they know about me, what they know about what I care about, and all those things.
I like it. I like it a lot. I think it's one of the things I think it says is that they care about where you're at. They're sharing what's real for them. And, I think sometimes, and I don't know this because you didn't share this, but
sometimes
people are brutally honest just to be brutally honest and want to say something to sort of
no one was that way.
Yeah,
thankfully.
I think people who are who are looking out for you and want to try to help. And I think that's, it talks a little bit about why we share.
Yes.
One of the reasons why we talk about this is because we can share what we believe, what is real for us, so that others can be impacted, maybe in a small way or maybe in a significant way. So it's great that you have people in your life who are willing to share that and that you were open to receive it. Because I know that's
totally, but I got there.
Well, I think you didn't complain about it.
No.
Which I think sometimes in the past, I think that has kept you stuck. And so the fact that you were celebrating it sounds like you were also ready to, all right, now you can move on. I think that's the other thing. It's sort of like celebration is the final completion. Okay, now I can move forward.
Yep.
Good for you.
What are you celebrating?
So I am celebrating that, this is work. And sometimes I don't think like my lacrosse assigning stuff is work. Although, man, sometimes it's really hard. So
you get compensated for it, right?
I do.
It's a service.
It is a service, correct.
I think it's the definition of work, and you work hard at it.
Yes. So this coming weekend is the last weekend of lacrosse for the 2021 year. And it has been a long year. Good.
So Tom officiates, and he also schedules officials for girls and women's lacrosse games. And some weekends, like this weekend, how many games are there that you have to have 2 or 3 officials for?
This weekend actually isn't horrible because there's not a lot of other things going on, unlike 2 weekends ago when, I think I had 30 fields and all day long. So I don't know. We probably have like 18 fields. So it's okay.
So that's 36 people minimum.
Yeah. And when the days run all day, you need more than that.
Yeah.
Although sometimes that's what you have.
And the weather's good, so you won't deal with, frost warnings and snow and rainouts and thunderstorms and
So I sent out the first draft of this weekend schedule, which is always like the big, okay, let's get it out there. And then all the changes and mistakes that I made or whatever come to light, and then I just have to adjust. So I'm celebrating the fact that is complete and without a lot of headaches.
So you're like the manager at McDonald's putting down schedule, and someone's like, no, I told you I need it off Friday because it's prom night, right?
Correct. Right. I can't do that game because my daughter plays that game. Oh, okay. Or I'm coaching that game. All right. So I'm celebrating the fact that it is out there, and now I'll get all the replies. So there'll be some more work to do. And it felt good to be like, all right, that's the last one for the year.
Nice. Congratulations.
Yes. So what is our nation celebrating, Bob?
It is National Check Your Wipers Day. Now, you may think this is not a big deal, but we are in that transitional phase where there are leaves that have fallen, there's road debris. Your wipers are very important. If you're trying to operate your vehicle safely, wipers are pretty important. I can tell you, I just had my wipers replaced about a month ago, and it's like the whole world opened up to me. I could actually see things I hadn't seen before, like stop signs and red lights and cars in front of me.
Things that are kind of important to notice.
Correct.
Is this and I don't know. So, I always worry about asking you these questions because sometimes you have a lot of information about it, and other times that's the day. Is it a biannual thing? How often are you supposed to check your
No,
wipers?
this is once a year,
Once a year?
but they recommend that you check your wipers twice a year.
Got it.
At
Today is the day of
usually in the
celebrating.
spring and in the fall.
Got it.
But one of the ways I know little about wipers, you could actually clean your wipers. Believe it or not, you can just take a napkin or a paper towel, a wet paper towel, and wipe it across the blade. And often that will improve your visibility tremendously.
Awesome. Cool. All
Your
right.
hint for the day from Bob.
Good to know. That's their one thing. Some
That's
people
it.
can walk away and feel like, wow, I learned something about wipers today.
You didn't even have that expectation today, right?
I did not have that expectations, which is good. So why don't we dive into our topic before I sneeze? And
It's funny. I was going to sneeze too.
that's weird. I don't know, especially because you're not in the office today, so wouldn't be
Right.
something in the air.
Yeah, you're in the executive headquarters for our growing metropolis of a business.
Yes. So as we've been talking about expectations. Yesterday we talked about our own expectations, the ones we place on ourselves. Today we're going to talk a little bit about the ones others have for us or others place on us. Do you want to kick off the conversation
Sure.
on that, Bob?
I think one of the things I had to learn in my career was to ask what people's expectations are, what clients want, what friends want, what family want. And the more I do that, the more I am frankly surprised by what they ask for. They often ask for something far less than what I was expecting to offer or give. Their expectations are lower than my own inside my head. And so sometimes I find that meeting someone's expectations is a whole lot easier than meeting my own.
Did you find that in work as well?
Yes, I have. Yeah. I used to, I still do it sometimes. I make things incredibly hard for myself. And then the person's like, I'm like, I just didn't get this done the way you wanted. And they're like, are you kidding? It's, 30% better than we imagined. And you dealt with these things. I'm like, but I didn't do this. And they're like, don't worry about it.
Okay. So
And I'll give you an example. I am blessed with the ability to write, and I can write something pretty quickly. And I've said to people, I had a company that wanted me to write a press release a couple months ago, and I was like, yeah, I can do that. And I'm like, when would you like it back? I can have it back for you tomorrow. And they're like, oh, well, anytime in the next 2 weeks. For me, it's easy. It's quick. It's done. For them, it was like, no, we want you to take 2 weeks to think about it. And what I've realized is people, when you're gifted in certain ways, people don't realize it. And they set the expectations around how long it would take them. And that can be advantageous because that's all they know. You only know what you know. You know what it takes to schedule 36 officials for a weekend. I don't. So you could say, well, I could probably get that done in 3 days. I'd be like, oh my God, it's going to take me 6 months. If the expectation in the contractual agreement is 6 months, then you can take 6 months. And I have another project where the expectations were established by the vendor, and they were over the top idealistic, impossible pie in the sky. And the result was a flawed product, a flawed project, because the expectations were set and the client was told, here's how it works. This is what it will take. And it turns out it would take about 3-4 times as much time and money. And I think we do that sometimes.
Oh, sure. I mean, I think there's again, as you said, you only know what you know. And sometimes you can't plan for everything. So while others may have expectation that you will do something at this point, or they will expect you to be a certain way, they may not have all the information. if the expectation is that you're supposed to be at your desk from 9 to 5 and you have challenges that have come up where you're supposed to show up at a meeting at this time, and if they don't ask if there are things that could get in the way of that happening, then they have these expectations that can't be met. And I think so often that's, part of the challenge is because there isn't a lot of there is communication, but there's missing elements that we all don't have, no way we could have necessarily. And those lead to expectations sometimes being they're too strong, too high, or it just can't be completed the way that we thought it was going to be done. Doesn't mean that it was horrible, just means that we took a calculated risk to say this is what could get done based on what someone else was looking for. And I guess if you had done it before, you would have some insight to it. And still, every project is different.
And every person's different.
And every person is different. And so there might be reasons why, even though it worked swimmingly before, and they're expecting you're going to have that happen again, that it might not be the same way the next time.
And I think this is hard for leaders. I think it's hard for leaders to establish expectations. And I think it's even harder for leaders to have their employees understand the expectations without it being very dictatorial. Like I had a job at one point where I was like, this has to be done by Friday. It wasn't going to be done by Friday. If it was going to be done by Friday, it was going to be messed up. And on Thursday, after 2 days of Bob, it's not going to get done. It's not going to get done. Finally, Thursday, I'm like, what's the problem? And there was a huge flaw in what the person was given. And they were trying to fix it. So that expectation, which set off a whole schedule of other things, was going to go unmet. And it's like, well, why didn't you tell me this sooner? It's like, I tried 3 days ago and I wasn't listening.
Sure.
I was in, it's a Friday. It's on my calendar for Friday. I don't want to hear any more excuses. And I think that's the other part of it is sometimes we get the boy who cried wolf syndrome where it's like, really? Come on. We've run out of excuses. There can't possibly be another one.
There could. I mean, I think that's the thing we never really know, right? Is we don't control everything. So there can always be another thing that pops up that is beyond control. And even you want to try to work through it, sometimes you can't work through it. And I think the one of the biggest challenges is that the challenge with expectations is, I think, as you said, is that they aren't usually communicated. And I think that's, this is a huge issue in the nonprofit space. And probably in other
spaces. It's a huge issue in every space.
Right. And anytime you
From law firms to accounting offices to classroom teachers.
Yes. I think that we're not always clear on the expectations. It's so funny. I think job descriptions, people put out job descriptions and they're not reflective of exactly what the people are going to do. You get in there and you're like, oh yeah, well, that's bits and pieces of it, but it's not all of it. There's always more. And I think that unfortunately people get in thinking that this is what they're getting in for. And then I think organizations feel like, okay, once we have them, we can get them to do whatever they want because they're now our employee. Or, as the nonprofit side I was thinking of was board members who, unless we talk to them as an organization about what are their expectations of how is the organization going to support them, we don't always know. And if we also don't provide to them what our expectations are, then things come up and they're like, well, I didn't think that was what I was supposed to do. I didn't realize that was my role. I didn't realize that was a part of my responsibilities. And I think now you get into, the challenges that then arise between a leader and a team member, owner and a staff member, an organizational leader and a board member. And I think those are when you get real people who things don't get complete the way people thought they would. And usually that's when issues start to arise.
Do you think you said earlier it was the communication? Do you think the communication is the big challenge, or is it getting agreement? Because as I think of situations where there was a disconnect, which is more often than not, it's because both parties or all parties, it could be 10 different people, didn't agree that, okay, this is what we're going to do. It was someone dictating, we're going to do it this way, and people going, okay, and sort of half buying in, or someone who had really valuable information not sharing it with the group because no one's going to listen to me. So the expectation was flawed initially. I think it's that, to me, around the table, if you and I agree to something, hey Tom, we're going to get this app done by Friday. Okay, that's it. Now we both work towards that goal. If you had said to me on Thursday, hey, I need you to do these 3 things. Okay, Tom, I'll put it on my list. I might have done it Monday. I might have done it next Tuesday. And you're going, no, this has to be done by Friday. But I wasn't, one, made aware of what your timeline was. And 2, I didn't agree to it.
Sure. Well, I think that's a little bit of effective communication, right? I mean, I think that, so often I think that communication is about someone has to be open and willing to listen and share both ways. In your scenario earlier where you talked about, you said you told your team you needed this done on Friday. Did they give you a chance to be like, or did you give them a chance to say, here are the 8 other things that we have to do that were also expected to be done by Friday?
I did not.
Which are right. So it was
one-sided.
It was a one-sided communication, correct. And I think in many of those relationships, one side isn't always willing to share what are the challenges that are being faced. It's one of the things that I like to talk with my clients a lot about. I was talking with one the other day, is people have brilliant ideas and they're like, oh, wow, we should do this. And so they go into somebody and be like, I was just thinking about this last night and we should do this as an organization. And usually that means someone else needs to do it. Right. And we don't then have the conversation of, well, okay, if we're going to do that, what are we taking away? What becomes a back burner priority? Because I don't know a lot of people who just sit around and are working roles where they sit around waiting with nothing to do. Most people have plenty to do. Then others have expectations they can do more. And that's usually when those things fall apart. And they're not willing to say, hey, I know you've got these 3 things on your plate. And we really need this other thing to be done. This is the number one priority. I think sometimes when that happens, the person who's being told that doesn't always have the opportunity to really just to share, hey, I've got these 3 other things, which one takes a back seat. I think usually, unfortunately, many leaders just come in and say, this needs to get done. It needs to be done by this date, like in your example.
Right.
Not understanding that, or being willing to have the conversation of, okay, I know that this is something you weren't expecting. Let's look at what else you have, and we can decide together which can take a back seat and a priority. And I think that's the challenge when others have expectations and they don't always understand everything that is real for us when they provide, share, tell us those expectations.
So Tom, what's your one thing? I've got mine if you don't have yours.
Yeah, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. I think it's finding that happy discussion point between all perspectives and coming to, rather than setting expectations, reaching a consensus around expectations. So that all parties involved actually are in agreement. This is what we're going to accomplish, which is the definition of teamwork, right?
Sure.
And working as a team, you accomplish more anyway. So I think that when others impose expectations on us, I think that's when we get into trouble, because 1, they may be saying them in their head and not saying them out loud because we didn't ask, or 2, they may be unrealistic and we wouldn't know that.
Sure. Yeah, I think my one thing is similar. I guess my one thing would be, I would challenge people that if someone is sharing expectations their own expectations of you, and you are struggling because you know that is going to create more challenges, that you share that with the person so that they understand what's real for you as you are trying to adjust to what they are asking you to do, telling you to do, providing for you, so that there is a better communication, as you discussed. I think so often we feel like we're in positions, and sometimes that's been based on the relationship that has already been established, where we can't respond when someone comes and says, this is, and I think that that is a skill set of, not just always doing that, because then they'll be like, well, it doesn't, if you tell me that you're too busy, or we have to have a conversation about what else we're going to put aside, and yet then I walk around and you're sitting there reading a book or surfing the internet, there's mixed messages going on there, and I think that's really part of it. So I would just encourage people that be real. When someone says and comes to you with expectations that you are struggling with, share that with them and have a conversation around, okay, what does that look like, and how can we try to achieve the goal that ultimately, hopefully, to move the organization forward, we both want to happen.
Nice. Love it.
All right, everyone.
There was a lot there today.
There was a lot there. That was it's interesting because I feel like yesterday our conversation was easier because we all have expectations of ourselves. I feel like today, when we were talking about others' expectations, it's hard because I can't speak for someone else because I don't know all what's real for them. Right. So it ends up coming back to, again, what are our expectations, or how are we seeing these expectations that others have from our perspective, not from their perspective? And I think that might be another thing, is that when people come and share those expectations, do we stop and consider what is their perspective on this? Or do we just say, well, this is mine and that's the only one that matters?
So folks, if you were expecting to have a great discussion around the idea of expectations, hopefully we met that for you today. We have discussions like this every day. Tom and I try to talk about the topics that are real to people, what's actually going on. If you like what you heard or saw, or both, feel free to share it with others. You can just send them a nice little email with the link. You can ask them to join our Ring Renegades Facebook group. If you are participating in the podcast, thank you so much. One of the things you can do to show your support to us on the podcast is give us a rating, 5 stars, and also share it with others. We are trying to get a message out to people. And the more people get this message, the more people will be able to better manage expectations, which will make their life easier. So you probably know someone in your life who could use this message. Share it with them. That is one of the most heartening things you can do for Tom and me. We really want people to understand these issues and these concepts. And you can join our Facebook group, the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. It is a private group. It's an exclusive group. It is designed to be that way so that you can be free and open in your discussions. As Tom and I were here, we want people to be able to share what's going on for them. Whether it's not perfect, that's fine. Flawed is perfectly fine in that group. So we invite you to do that. What did I miss, Tom? I think I covered it all.
No, I think you got it all. I think, it was interesting as you were talking through that. One of the things that I really have enjoyed about doing this over the last, and I think I've shared this before, but maybe not, is that just the conversation alone has forced me to look at things differently. And I think that what we are saying may or may not resonate with someone. It may not be like, that might not be what's real for them at the moment. What I hope it does is that it gets them to think about a topic that is either maybe uncomfortable for them, or they haven't really thought about or given much thought to, that encourages them to at least start to consider, well, where do I land on this? Those two might be knuckleheads, and whatever they say is all right.
They'll give us 5 stars.
And it might at least cause them to think about something that they maybe haven't thought about. And that, to me, I think is what I hope that one of the real values is. Yeah, do I think that we offer advice, feedback, thoughts that are helpful? Sure, absolutely. And I know that it's going to hit everyone differently. The fact that someone would take the time to listen and consider it and determine what's real for them and how does that impact them going forward, I think is, to me, one of the most powerful things that we can do is we can put things out there that allow others to consider this perspective that they might not have ever considered before. So if one leader stops and says, before I just go tell this person I need this done by Friday, that they stop and say, share a little bit with me about what your workload is. I know you're the perfect person to do this, and I really would like you to accomplish it, and I really need it at this point, but where are you at? And I also understand that let's have a conversation around, if you're going to do this project that is significant, is going to move our organization forward, what do I need to take off your plate to help you accomplish it? If that happens one time, 450 episodes have been well worth it. So,
all right,
everyone. Thanks so much for being a part of our show today. We hope that we had a little bit of impact on you, and we look forward to seeing you inside the Ring of Renegades Facebook group, or we'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern time, for our next edition of Today's Antidote.
Hey,
have a great day, everyone.
Embrace the renegade in you, and hey, the other thing, check those wipers.
Good safety plug there. I like that.
Thank you. And spay and neuter your pets, right? Remember Bob Barker at the end of his Price is Right show?
That's what he would say?
Yeah, every time. Yeah.
Interesting. All right.
There you have it.
Good to know. Take care, everyone.
All right.
Thanks for listening to Today's Antidote, powered by the Renegade Success Network. The Renegade Success Network helps you confidently create your own unique pathway to success. To learn more about the Renegade Success Network and how you can take your next step, follow us on Twitter, connect on LinkedIn, or join the Ring of Renegades Facebook group. For full details on how you can join our community, go to renegadesuccessnetwork.com. Embrace the renegade in you.